Hi, welcome to Discover Hope, Stories of Spoken Hope, a place to come when the script of your life gets flipped. My name is Sarah, and today we're going to be talking about when my friends and outer peripheral people started to enter the scene after Sheldon died. What did they say? How bad did I freak out? And what ultimately ended up helping? Thanks for being here. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sarah. This is Discover Hope Podcast, and we are officially into episode number 7. And first of all, I will never get tired of saying thank you for one, showing up, listening, and being here. And I've reached out to a few people to ask if I can share some of the feedback that I've been given. I haven't gotten the answers yet, so I won't ever share anything without someone's permission. But I do have to say this. It's so inspiring. And the coolest thing for me, I think, is in other areas of my life when I've done something, it's a very natural human reality to feel something when you get feedback. Like I used to play fast pitch softball, like great hit or great stop, or with your kids, you feel good when somebody says something, or when we had the church, I sadly lived in a constant state of how many people are here, because it was just everything was so numeric on the outside that that just always felt like a pressure. In real estate, it's always so exciting to get to serve my clients and see them happy or stressed and get to walk with them through things. And the really amazing experience for me with the podcast is it feels more like I'm putting something out there that I wish I had. And so when I get feedback, it's kind of like, okay, I had a feeling this could be helpful because it's something I wished I had. But so anyway, all that to say, I don't even have the word, to be very honest. It's invigorating. I feel like a contributor. And then I feel like as these voices start to come together, I'm like, no, we are onto something, you guys. And I'm so thankful that you're here. And I feel like we're partnering together. So thank you. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is, because I'm kind of going chronologically here at first, because there was so many intense experiences that I had that I've always felt like, again, I'd be like, what did somebody do on day number 3, And this reality of days is so embedded into the heart of our home that when Kobe Bryant and his daughter and all the other people that were killed in that tragic accident happened, our home froze. And I think it was during COVID, if I'm not mistaken, because all of the kids were home and we were just staring at the TV, literally the whole day. It just kind of seemed like no way. And I'll never forget. I mean, Cash had to have been maybe 8 years old. And he looked up at me and goes, "Mom, they're on day 1. So I don't know if you're on day 1, 1,000, or 100,000, and I don't know how you got to where you are, but here's a little bit more of how I got to where I am. So once, just kind of those first couple of days, we got home, and then you're just kind of in this weird reality of, well, you're starting to plan the memorial, which I always say to people, it's so weird. It's after my experience when Sheldon died, we still had something to plan for him. So saying his name, it wasn't in the past tense. It was I knew he was gone, but it was kind of this very comforting feeling of you're still doing something for him. And this will be the last public thing that you hold for them. And in a way, right? These moments are going to become less and less. And so, like I said, Sheldon was a pastor in our community of University Place, Washington. He was a coach, and he was just a good man. he used to go to Starbucks a lot, and like he'd do a lot of his studying, but he'd go every Sunday morning and kind of just get like his like lock in. And there were this group of guys, older gentlemen that were always there having coffee, and they talked to him. And after Sheldon passed, they came up to me. They're like, "We're so sorry. We saw him every Sunday morning." And so anyway, and then I was very public with my grief. And the way it expressed out of me is it wasn't like no harm, no foul for how anyone expresses, but my expression was like I've mentioned in another episode. I said I feel like I had to get bigger than Sheldon's death. Like I felt like I felt like my outward had to match my inward, like my battle cry had to match my soul cry. Because I think if I didn't, I really, you guys, I don't know how I would have made it. I do not know, but I don't have to know, because thank God, like I'm here now getting to share what it was like and what happened and what helped. So in all of that, I ended up having a beautiful woman named Lisa Marsh, and she's given me permission to share this story, reach out to me through my friend Brittany Bibby, because they work together. And Lisa, so this is 7 years ago that Sheldon, 7.5. Oh my gosh, 7.5 next month. So at the time, Lisa's late husband and father of her two girls had passed away suddenly, I believe 11 years before Sheldon. And she was my first real life, like woman, human being that had ever walked through what I was walking through. And I'm talking, maybe it was within the first 2 weeks. And she had reached out to Brittany and said, "Hey, if Sarah ever wants to get together, I'm here." And I was like, when? And so I really think it was within the first 2 weeks. And so we ended up meeting at Boathouse 19 and just talking. And she was the first person that I saw in her eyes what I was been searching for. And what it was another human being that had walked my path. So it wasn't oh my gosh, what is she saying? Why is she saying this? It wasn't sometimes I'd feel judged. And again, these are all my own narratives of maybe they were happening, but it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter if it was my story or the real story. It was my experience. And so with Lisa, it was compassion and it was empathy. And this is really interesting. I just told my kids this the other day. I was reading this book right when my dad died, because my dad died suddenly 5 months before Sheldon. And it might have been The Art of Empathy. I don't know. But there was a line in the book that said, empathy is giving to someone else what you needed most in a moment, but didn't get. And I felt that with Lisa. I don't know if somebody else showed up in her life, but I know she was a godsend, but I love how kind of the dynamic of the story of my experience was that day when we left Boathouse 19 because of this. So we talked, we got to share, I was like, what happened? And I got to tell her what happened. And it again was met with not that, deer in the headlights, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing better than being able to, when you say something gnarly in grief and the other person leans in and says, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Me too, And so, sorry, I'm just getting comfortable. So I'm kind of dinking around with the microphone, but whatever. Okay, so we go and we leave. And I say, Lisa, how long is this going to take? And I'm crying right now because I'm just thinking of myself 7 years ago, 6.5. And like that girl that asked that question really thought that maybe Lisa was going to tell her a time frame. Like how long is this going to be like this? And when do you stop hurting so bad? And when do you catch your breath? And when is it going to feel better? And when do you stop waking up going, oh no, it did happen? And she looked at me and she goes, oh, Sarah, this is going to take a while. And then my personality, I'm like, okay, but how long? Because my dad always taught us, like, you could ask anything. The worst somebody could say is no. So I'm like, and she just looked at me again like, Sarah, then she was kind of like, well, I can tell you this. I know I went to counseling every week for 2 years. And I was like, and then, you have these little judgments, these little grief judgments, like, well, maybe she wasn't working hard enough. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way could take 2 years. And I just said, oh, 2 years? And she's like, yeah. And then she just looks at me and goes, honey, I promise you this. If there was a woman on this planet, this is Lisa saying to me, there was a woman on this planet who would have found a way over it, around it, under it, or beside it, Sarah, it would have been me. I'm telling you, honey, the only way you are going to get through this is by going through this. And oftentimes it's like when I experience things that people say to me that I don't like, but I know are necessary, I often have there's kind of just an internal FU going on. Like, you know what I mean? But of course, like I've been people pleasing long enough to not let it show. More on that later. So there was this like kind of like, F you, Lisa. And you don't know me. You don't know what work I'm willing to do. And then back, I'm sure in her heart, she's like, oh, wow, bless her heart. Like she really, by God's grace, doesn't understand the road that she's in for. You know what I'm saying? Because if any of us knew what lied on the other side of heartache and pain and our lives being leveled right in front of us, like, do you think we'd keep going? No, that's the beauty of hope. That's the beauty of hanging on to something that goes, well, this sucks, but so does this, right? The episode sucked, what happened, but so does this experience. So I guess the only way to get through it, the only way to change my experience is to do something about it, which included a lot of hard work. So, and then as we were leaving, because I kept wanting, like, I just wanted a time frame, but that's me, man. I love numbers. I love time. I love all this stuff. And so, but it was something when I realized there was no controlling this. And I've learned in my recovery life, like the different word for control is manage. And I like that better. So there was no way to manage the outcome of this other than by showing up one day at a time. So as we're leaving, Lisa says to me, she's like, Sarah, and she didn't say it punishing. She said it with kindness and compassion and all the love in the world. It didn't necessarily land that way with me because of what I was going through. And what she said was this. She said, honey, you're going to miss him for the rest of your life. And when she said that, like, in movies where you see like things go slow motion or somebody's in like a fun house, but I do not like Halloween. It's not fun when you're in those spooky rooms and the room starts spinning. You almost feel like there's clowns popping out of darkness, like laughing at you. Like, and listen, like, I'm sure when Lisa hears this, she's going to be like, what? It had nothing to do with what she said. It had everything to do with the reality that I was living in. Because when she said, you're going to miss him for the rest of your life. When I tell you this, you guys, I am not joking. When Sheldon died, I had this physical pain in my side for, I know, well over a month. Because we did his memorial about 3 weeks after he died. And it was still there then. And I would say to people, like, in those early days, I'd say, because, in the Christian tradition, in the Bible, there's this part where it talks about that God sews man and woman together, like he knits us together as one. And I would say to people, like, if that part of, like, because some people read the Bible as like story or poetry, or there's a lot of different elements to it. I have my degree in theology. It doesn't necessarily like matter per se, but in the context of this conversation anyway. But I said, like, if that writing in the Bible is factual, like that somehow our spirits do become one with our partner, then I'm like, then I'm feeling it, because I said, I feel like Sheldon got ripped from my soul, and so when she said, you're going to miss him for the rest of your life, I was already in my own world of torment. I was already in physical pain. And then it was like, forever? Because when you're on day 12 of forever, hearing those sort of things is just like, what? So, of course, I'm like, thank you. gave her a hug. We are still dear friends to this day. Her youngest daughter has been a big influence in my daughter's life because they both walked paths at different seasons of their life of losing their earthly fathers and then God bringing an amazing step-up dad. So that's kind of cool. Not kind of, it's amazing. So I go home, and again, mind you, the whole drive, I mean, maybe 7 minutes, but still I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I don't even remember who was at the house. I end up running downstairs. And so Sheldon and I were married for 17.7 years. Oh, interestingly enough, at the time of this recording, it's July 9th of 2025. Our what would have been 25th anniversary would have been next week. Isn't that wild? That's wild. Yeah, wow. Okay, we were married for almost 18 years. But at year 7, when we were pregnant with Ruby Love, that's why her name it's one word. People often think it's a nickname. It's her legal first name, one word, and she'll let you know. And since she was 3, she's like, no, it's Ruby Love, one word. So we hit a bump in our marriage. And I always tell people, like, there wasn't another woman, there was no substance. And I hope you think this is just me being like post church world funny, because that seems to be like a traditional thing. Like, when something's going on in the pastor home, like I always tell people there was not another woman, there was not, any substances. It was just, I'm like, basically, the toaster and the blender were old, and we were kind of, 2 kids, almost 3 kids deep into our marriage. And we're like, is this marriage? And we ended up, Sheldon and I were so intentional. We were so intense too with things. Like there wasn't a mountain we wouldn't move in a department of our life. And there wasn't anything we wouldn't talk about. So even when I'm being funny about church life stuff, it's just, I just sometimes think I'm funny. So if that's offensive to anyone, I'm not meaning to be. It's just just a little humor. But I do want to acknowledge if that hits you. Like, I don't want to be offensive. You know what I mean? I don't want to cause harm. So anyway, we ended up going to this intensive in Colorado, and it was a 2-week marriage intensive. And the person that we're so thankful, Will Franz is the name of the therapist that walked us through just some amazing parts of life. And so after Sheldon died, of course, he reached out. He was amazing. But I ended up being able to call him this particular day. So I called and I said, Will, he answered, which I thought was amazing. I said, Will, this is Sheldon Koch, and I have some questions. I'm having a really hard time, and I know that like this isn't a session, but you can bill me. Like I just kind of was out of my mind, but I wanted to like honor his profession. I didn't just want to I didn't want him to be scared that if I ever called again that I was just going to blow him up. And so he's like, Sarah, what's going on? And I said, well, I just had lunch with this awesome woman, and she lost her husband 11 years ago, and she's walked through what I've walked through. And she's not the first person that said this to me, but when we were leaving, I think I kind of freaked out because she said, Sarah, you're going to miss him for the rest of your life. And I was like, Will, is that true? Is that true? Am I going to feel like this for the rest of my life? Like I was literally having like a panic attack, you guys. And in another episode, I think episode 4, the day after, where I talk about there's been different times when people have, especially in the darkest moments, have let out this little like laughter. Like it's not a giggle, but it's like it's almost like, oh, sweetie. Or the way I look at my kids when they were little and be like, oh, honey, you know what I mean? It's very endearing, but it also would break through these really dark moments. He said, oh, Sarah, I don't know if you can appreciate this, but I'd love to share something with you. And I was like, absolutely. So I'm going to actually transition over here to a whiteboard where I'm going to like draw out what Will taught me over the phone, because I think I've now learned it's science and psychology. And if I can share anything with you guys, I would love, like, the practical tools side of this is where I get pumped. So hang on, I'll be right back. Okay. look, we've got our little whiteboard here. I want to show you what Will taught me. But before we do, I forgot to tell you something at the very beginning of all of this. I don't know if most of you have like noticed that in that previous episodes I have a blanket, and first of all, that was not the plan. Second of all, people are like, "Oh my gosh, you look so cozy. Is that like meant to be like we're with you? You're sitting in our living room." I'm like, yes, like that was the heart behind Discover Hope podcast, was like that you wouldn't feel alone. But the truth of the blanket is, when I came to record for my first time, I've never done anything like this. Well, in true me fashion, which I wish wasn't the case, I couldn't find what I wanted to wear, and I knew what I wanted to wear was black, but I couldn't find like my better leggings. And if ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So I had put on these jeans, and then when I sat down in the chair, it was my first time being in here and seeing myself on camera. I was like my muffin top just went like boof. And I said to Quentin, who I'd never met in real life until that moment, I was like, I know you don't know me, but I'm not going on camera with a muffin top. Like, do you have a blanket? And in his recording studio, because he's all sorts of music and talent and producing and all the things, got me a blanket. So, but today I didn't have it, and I meant to tell you in the beginning. But anyway, I just thought that was funny, and I just want to be myself in these rooms because, yeah, anyway, I thought that was funny, but no blanket today. I have found my better leggings, and all of that to say, here we go. So, Will Franz, this is what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to write it out. He said, Sarah, if you can appreciate this, he'll just start like this. He said, a human being was designed to go through the most horrific of circumstances, because that's like, think of the history and what we know human beings have come through, you know? And he said, and the body was designed to carry us through grief. Our mind was, our spirit was, and our body, right? Because we experience those things in all different forms. So he said, grief emotions come like the 7 sets of the sea, and they can last up to 7 minutes. He said, now traditionally there can be variables of all these different things, but nonetheless, when grief wave comes, it's designed to carry you, not crush you. But for me, I was always like, why don't we teach this in kindergarten? Like, when you get sad and you get your feelings hurt and you're going to want to hide or you're going to want to fight, if we would learn to sit down and let those feelings come up, embarrassment, shame, anger, fear, all those different things, then we would learn as human beings that we're to be carried to the next place in life, which is to higher ground. I'm like, what? Mind you, I've had years to process this, but in the moment, you guys, I locked on and I was like, okay. And so I'm going to write it. So it's like this. He said, a grief wave comes. Oh, I should use blue. Hello. A grief wave comes, and right at the top, what happens? Chaos. Like all the craziness. I'm going to draw it up. Fear, anxiety, I can't handle this. I won't make it. I won't come back from this. I mean, all the things. Never mind, I'll just, go on Tinder. Never mind, I'll just grab a drink. Never mind, I'll just rage. Never mind, I'll just shop. Never mind, I'll just shut down. Like, you guys, like, right? Am I speaking to anyone or just myself? Anyone? And then I said, okay, so Will, what do I do? He said, well, the design of life, and for me, that would be God, right? Like, God made me to be able to go through the most horrific of circumstances, or the design of life is there to support you. So he said, but if we don't know what's on the other side of this, what person in their right mind who is suffering is going to put themselves into a harmful situation when they don't know what the outcome is going to be? Well, check this out, you guys. So he said, Sarah, where do you go to freak out, lose it, cry, be sad? And I'm like, oh, the bath. And I mentioned this in another episode, I think 5, and where I was talking to a different therapist. And he said, okay, that's actually amazing. He said, here's what I want you to do. Because grief waves can come in the middle of the night. They can come when you're at work. They can come when you're making breakfast for your kids. They can come when you're out with friends and you're supposed to be celebrating something. And all of a sudden you're like, oh no, it's coming. Like grief has its own time world that it lives in. And so he said, when you're able, tell the kids, hey guys, and that's just how I'm wired. Anything I would learn, I would then tell it to the kids. And that's just my wiring too. I kind of need things to be out there and understood, because I don't know, I just felt like it'd be weird if I was just like running downstairs to like take a bath, like wailing. It's not funny, but I just was picturing it in my mind, like fire behind me. Anyway, so I would go, I was like, okay guys, Will just told me this. So I'm going to start practicing this. So I would feel a grief wave come and I would run down and I'd start the bath. And there was something about that I've learned, I'm very sensory. And so I would start the bath and then I'm such a nerd with dates and times that I would of course have my phone with me and I'd push start on my stopwatch. And then I would it just seems so I know when I'm describing it, it could seem very clinical, but to me, it was the most helpful tool during that season, because it kind of let me tell those that I was with, if I excuse me, I didn't have to tell them all the details, but grief waves coming, go. Sometimes I would put the towel and just bite it and just kind of scream inside, and other times, I remember one time when I thought this was a big one, and I go down there and I'm like, it just seems funny. I'm crying, just, then it's it went really fast. And I was I remember grabbing my phone off the toilet and be like, that one was only 3 minutes and 34 seconds, And that practice saved my life, I know. And what Will said is, he said, when you will allow yourself to do this, and now I've since learned it's called somatic healing or somatic therapy. I actually wrote this part down. It says, so somatic therapy teaches us that feelings rise up in us to carry us to our highest and best self. But if we don't know that, you guys, it's almost what am I going to get out of this? Just torment? No. You're going to get the best version of yourself. You're going to get wisdom from within yourself that are treasures. And I mean that. And so I'm going to pause there and I'm going to tell you one more thing, but I want to get back to that. So when Will said this, he said, Sarah, if you will begin to do this, and if you will teach the kids to do this, and here's the thing, my kids are older now and there's different realities of dad's not going to be there. You hit these moments, these milestones and go, oh yeah, dad, And so this reality is available on the onslaught or 50 years after the fact. It's never too late to heal and to try and to keep showing up. So what Will said is, if we would do this, he said, you will actually metabolize more of Sheldon's memory than resist it. And he will actually become more a part of you than this missing piece of you. And can I tell you how true that is? He said, that's why you'll meet people and go, oh, we don't say that name around here. Oh, no. We don't talk about him. We don't talk about what happened. And I can see why, you guys, because it hurts. It hurt. We just visited Ferndale, California, where Sheldon grew up, and we got to tour the high school and see where his name was written on trophies. And we got to hold the beloved milk can, which is this football trophy that goes because it's a dairy community between Fortuna, California, the Huskies, where my parents actually graduated from, and Ferndale High, the Wildcats, where Sheldon and his lineage graduated from. And so there's this iconic picture of Sheldon back in the day, probably sophomore year or something, senior year, number 44, holding up this milk can going, ah! And then we recreated it with Rocco. My second born, he plays football at Idaho. And then Scout held it, and I actually did kind of my version, and then his mom and the principal. And I'm saying all of that to say, because it was sad. It was sad looking at his face and those pictures that are still in the hallway that the coach has up in his office. And somebody said to me, Sheldon was one of one. We got to meet one of his coaches at a family wedding we were at. And when I would see people talk about their dad, it's like I see kind of these glimmers of light come into my kids' faces. So listen, if you're like the head of the home or you're the main person, if you have little ones, like do the work. Like you could DM me, you could message me, say, Sarah, I'm heading into a wave. Like I'm serious, you guys. Like I'll be here with you, or turn on the podcast. And like in this spirit, like we're together, and stuff. And so the last thing I wanted to say about that, and then I'll wrap up this episode, is that there were three. One being sometimes they don't last as long as you think they're going to last. One of the first ones was this wave came so hard. It was nighttime, and this was when I was angry. And this was when I was like, I remember saying to God, like, why? Like, why? Like, what? Like, why? And then I was getting so much insight when Sheldon died, like things in my own life that I could do better and just grow things and these tools. And I felt like I was like growing. And I remember saying to God in my heart, like, you could have done this any other way. Like, I've always been willing to grow. I've always been willing to change. I want to be the best version of myself. I'll tell you I'm sorry when I've hurt you or done something wrong. Like, I can be a stinker, you know what I mean? But my genuine heart, I think, is good. And so this was one of those times when I was just like, why? And I was getting really mad, and I was looking at the clock and it's getting closer to the timer because the 7-minute wave. And I remember just going like kind of that feeling of like, oh, I'm not shifting. I'm not pivoting. I'm not turning this corner that I normally could get to. And then I kind of like was freaking out. And I normally could have, when the bathwater was starting to get high, is usually kind of when the pivot would happen, and it wasn't happening. And so then I channel Rachel Thomas, the therapist from Scottsdale, and I'm like, okay, put hand on heart, hand on belly, breathe, breathe, breathe. Like, I'm just like, come on, Sarah, come on. And I, for whatever reason, it's just like my mouth broke open, and I went from, why, God, why? Like, you didn't have to do it this way. Like, and I was like, and it just shifted, and I just, out of my mouth popped, I thank you, God, for Sheldon's life. I thank you that I got to be his wife. I thank you that he's the father of our kids, and he will live on in them and through them. But they're their own people, right? And thank you, God, that I got to be with him. Thank you, God, that his family was there. Thank you, God, that his mom didn't have to get that phone call from far away. And then out of nowhere, I am not kidding you, I felt this wild bump of my heartbeat. And it was so wild that like for a nanosecond, I was like, did I just have a heart attack? And I remember even looking up at the ceiling, like, what just happened? And I looked down at my heart, and it's like I heard this message of, you're on a better track now. Because you can feel your feelings, but you can't keep asking why. You have the right to. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, but you know what I'm talking about. We've all met the person that is stuck in their loop because to do this, they don't know about this. And so I'm like, you guys, like I chat GBT, like what happens in the algorithm when somebody likes, subscribes, comments? Like, you always hear that on YouTube, like, don't forget to smash the like button. And we all go, ew. Like, I don't want to give anybody the ick, but it was like, they said that like a like is like a tap on the shoulder to an algorithm going, hey, there's some cool stuff in here. Like a subscribing and following, like a podcast or anything, is like saying to the algorithm, oh, this is important. So my whole heart is to get these resources out into the atmosphere so people can connect with this stuff. You know what I mean? Because that could change somebody's life. Like, you could be 73 years old and you lost a parent when you were little and you still haven't said why, or I miss you, mom, I miss you, dad, or you could have gone through a devastating divorce, or you could have been your own disappointment and you still are haunting your own self and you're stuck. Or you could be in that diagnosis and just be locked into what Google says is going to happen to you. But I don't know what it would look like for you to do this, but I'm sure interested. And so it's that whole Sheldon came home from the center. He did this, I call it emotional sobriety. People go there for all sorts of things. It's in Edmonds, Washington. It's called the Center, a place of hope. And he learned this line: on the other side of fear is anything you want. So on the other side of your pain, on the other side of your disappointment, on the other side of that divorce, on the other side of that loss or that diagnosis and facing it head on is anything you want, you guys. And what I mean by that is any experience that you want to have for yourself is there. Okay, last little story about this and then we'll wrap up. So I can tell you this, it definitely matched that 7-minute cycle. And there's a couple times it would be short, a couple times a couple minutes longer. But do you find that so helpful? Because when that rage comes or that sadness comes or that fear or that victim mentality or that martyr or that, resentment comes, like we can, this isn't just for like grief. You know what I mean? These are for our human emotions when they rise up. There's messages in there. These waves are meant to carry us, not crush us. It's going to take you to the next layer of your best self. And so the one that lasted the longest, I'll just tell you on the front end, it was 32 minutes. And I thought I was going to die. It hit out of nowhere. It definitely, that nobody was home. So that means to me, the kids must have been back at school. And I'm walking, I have a basket of laundry and I'm going down to do the laundry. It was downstairs. And out of nowhere, nothing was said, just out of nowhere, this thought went, bzz, and it was, you're not married. It's not funny, but it was like, I knew I wasn't like married, but it was like, I just remember standing in the stairs and going, I'm not married. I'm not married. I'm not married. Like, it was just like this shock. And Sheldon and I worked really hard on our marriage and we liked each other. And I was like, my marriage ended on a technicality. And I was like ticked about it. And so I remember just running downstairs and dropped the laundry basket and got into the bath. And I mean, you guys, I filled that sucker up probably 4 times. So I was like, and I grabbed my phone. I'm like, 8 minutes. Okay, surely, 13 minutes, all the things. I mean, I am like this by myself, just so you know. Like, there's not putting anything on. I mean, it was, just awful, anyone who's been there knows. And I'll never forget when it was like 23 freaking minutes. Are you kidding me? I'm going to die with this one. I'm going to die. And then sure enough, there it came. But 32 minutes, that's like a sitcom. You know what I mean? Like, if you're old school like I am, you remember old school TV. Like a whole sitcom, are you kidding me? Oh, but I did it. I did it. And you can too. Guys, there's so much support in the world. There's so much life out there. I'm not kidding you. If I've said anything that, Google this stuff, YouTube it, ChatGPT it. Like, you're smarter than I think you might you're smart, you know that. But we can help ourselves a lot more. Make an appointment with a therapist, talk to a friend, tell somebody you just learned about this and you're terrified to go through your first one and see if they'll do it with you. Like, I did this for my kids. One of my kids would rage, not just about her dad, but about life. Oh, sorry, Ruby Love, I kind of called you out. Well, it's real. And so I was like, Ruby Love, go in your room and tell Alexa to set a 7-minute timer. And it was something about that would anchor her. It was like, lose your mind for 7 minutes, girl. I don't care, but you're not doing it out here. Message me, DM me. Those of you that have Instagram, Facebook, phone, I literally have sent back like Instagram cut me off yesterday on a 5-minute when I sent back to someone. They're like, Sarah, that was really helpful, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, blah, blah to you, but like la, la, la of the episode that came out yesterday. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'll respond when I can. I'm not doing it to get something, but it means something. So thanks for being here, guys. See you next time. And remember, you can do this. You're not alone. It's going to get you something, not take anything from you. You're going to gain, not lose. Okay? You got this. See you soon. All right. Before we go, if Discover Hope has helped you or encouraged you at all, I wanted to invite you to be a part of the bigger picture. One way you could do that would be by subscribing, liking, or sharing any of the episodes with someone you think might benefit from it, or even on your social media platforms. Another way you could do this if you'd like to make a donation or even sponsor an episode on behalf of someone you love, you can do that by clicking the link to discoverhope.org below, or you can head on over to our website where you can make donations there or also sponsor at discoverhope.org. You guys, thank you for being a part of this. It's a dream come true. And I truly believe that we are giving grief a language and making room for an abundant amount of hope. Thanks so much.